everybody, welcome back to Hannah Clark's Writing Gems. Sorry I've been missing a little for the last week. I had some emergency edits that I needed to do, so I had to take a week off. But I'm back to finish the last segment in our Resonance and Originality gem. And so I wanted to talk to you guys, on this segment I wanted to talk to you guys about actually using resonance in our own writing. So last time I talked about what resonance is and kind of how we see it in other works that have done really well, and how it can take, you know, something that's totally unrelatable to your audience and make it very relatable and very popular because of that resonance within it. And so I just kind of wanted to start by taking a few examples, like I did last time, kind of refresh your memory about what I talked about last time, with how three really popular authors have taken and used resonance from previous either historical events or previous novels or movies or whatnot, and made it work for them within their really successful work. And so I talked about three authors last time. I'm going to use the same three this time. First of all, Suzanne Collins, who of course is the author of the Hunger Games trilogy. Looking at her work, and actually I watched interviews with her, and you know, just to learn about her inspiration for her works. And if you've watched any of those, you know that she was inspired by two main things. One was reality TV of this generation and kind of its effects on society and the moral kind of dilemma with reality TV, and then the Roman gladiator situation from clear back in the day, and she just kind of married those two and created this extremely popular franchise called The Hunger Games. So those are two really, that's a really great example of how she took two really well-known things, really popular things, and married them together and then put her own individual twist on them to make something really unique but still resonant with a young adult audience. So that's a really great example. Another one, of course, I used last time was J.K. Rowling with her Harry Potter series. She took, you know, really common cliches about witchcraft and wizardry, and married it with this kind of exciting / dangerous idea of boarding school, and then a secret world in plain sight, that kind of idea that you find in so many children's literature books like Narnia and, Susan Cooper's The Dark is Rising series. You find it all over the place, this idea of a secret world in plain sight. But she took those three things, married them together, and then twisted it with her own really great humor, you know, put this really, her own individual, witty, super creative, super detailed wit and humor on him, and voila, there's her big blockbuster franchise. So there's great resonance there as well. I mean, she could have totally failed at it if she'd done it, I think, probably any different. The way that she did it was obviously genius. But lots of people have attempted the same thing before and after, and it hasn't obviously gotten the same result. So she did something very right, and a lot of it was, you know, taking the resonance, but also so much of it was her own unique view of the world. And the same with Suzanne Collins. There's just something about you as an individual, that originality that only you have, married with these popular concepts that resonate with people. And the final one, of course, is Stephanie Meyer with Twilight. She took, you know, the classic urban legends that, you know, we heard or grew up with as kids, that freaked us out, and she made them glamorous. You know, she married vampires and werewolves with fashion and fast cars and wealth, and again, this idea of a secret world in plain sight, and put her own sort of twist on it, and that is what makes it individual. That's what makes it original, is the fact that she took something that had been done before and made it her own, with her own voice and her own view on the world and such. and of course took a really usually vampires are usually associated with a much more I don't know if seductive sort of view on things, and she made it very chaste, which was all part of the seduction, if that makes sense. Like she took that seductive myth and made it chaste, but which heightened the tension, the sexual tension, and everything that was going so well in those books, which totally took the nation and the world by surprise and captivated them all. So those are 3 examples of a resonance and originality done very well. So how do we, how do we get resonance in our own writing? And the truth is, and I talked about this last time, is that there's no escaping resonance in your own writing. It doesn't matter how hard you try to be as original as possible. There's always going to be something from your childhood, from works that you've read, from movies you've seen, from everything around you that will find its way into your writing. And so the challenge is to maximize that, make it a valuable tool for you. And I've talked before about how as creators we need to fill our creative well. And the way we do that is by, of course, observing what's around us, observing other authors, studying their work, studying movies, studying music, studying art, all kinds of things, and getting them inside of us, and then they come out through our own sensor, or whatever you will, and become original, because they're coming through us. Unless, of course, you're like totally copying, which that's a no-no, don't do it. But this idea of filling up your well with as much art and nature and books and movies and all that kind of stuff that you can, and then seeing how you formulate it into something original. And so I just want to kind of point out a few ways that we can fill that well. Of course, I've talked about before, if you're writing and you know your genre, you want to go to that genre and you want to pick the masters of that genre, and you want to study them and see how they did it right. And of course, don't neglect the people that haven't done it as right, because it's really important, just as valuable to study how not to do it as it is to study how to do it, so you don't fall into the same sort of downfalls as some maybe authors who haven't done it as well. But for sure, focus on the masters, because they were obviously doing something right. Something with their work has resonated with a large audience, and as authors, that's usually kind of what we want, is a large audience to affect as many people as possible with our art. So study the classics in your genre. And of course, I don't limit my reading to just fantasy. That's what I write, and actually I don't read a ton of fantasy. I read enough to really kind of understand the world and how understand that genre and how it works and whatnot. But I'm not a high fantasy writer. I'm more of a mainstream fantasy writer, so it's like fantasy for everyone. But I recently started reading a lot more in the Christian romance, historical romance, Christian historical romance, and that I think is a big reason why Cabo Goth, in the rewrite for my new publisher, why it went from being just kind of a mild love story to like the love story is kind of the central plot in it. Is because of that influence, and it helped me be able to understand the genre better, like understand romance and how you write it, because it can be really awkward if you don't understand how to write romance, but you got to study it. You got to understand how to how to do it right, to have it resonate with an even bigger audience, because not only are you hitting the fantasy people, you're hitting the romance people too, and the in-between people, and that it broadens your audience when you study more than just your specific genre, because you're able to resonate with a lot more people. So don't just limit yourself to just one genre. The other thing that I do, especially when I'm outlining, and I've said this before, is I study movies. Movies for me, when I'm outlining, just doing the structure of a story, are the best way for me to get that in my well, is to study lots and lots of movies. And then a lot of times I'll go see movies that really resonate with me at least 3 times to really get and study what they've done so well to make them really resonate with me, and what's made them so popular or whatnot, because that's how I learn, and it's especially effective for me when I'm in that stage of my writing process. When I'm writing, actual writing, I read tons of books because I want the language in me. But when I'm in the story structural part of things, I stick with movies. Another thing is, of course, like just all art. Music is hugely influential in my writing. I don't listen to music while I'm writing, but I listen to music almost all the rest of the time, and it really just helps me with tone. It helps me with themes, like that really I'll have certain themes that I'm working on in my writing, and so I'll listen to the kind of music that makes me feel that sort of a theme. Art is the same way. I also study a lot of mythology. You know, they're still stories, but they're not really like literature. They're more just kind of, you know, they're just myths that aren't really, they were passed down word of mouth through generations. And so I study a lot of that because I'm fascinated with it, and I'm fascinated with the concept that stories it's a universal thing, and it's so powerful, and studying what aspects of storytelling have been universal throughout the ages. That's a really great thing to understand with resonance as well. Also, nature is hugely influential in my own writing, and lots of other authors, I'm sure, and I've heard it lots. But Iceland, I've never been to Iceland, but I've studied it a lot because of Kabogoth, and it completely transformed Kabogoth early on when I decided to set it in Iceland, because before I hadn't quite decided, but once I decided to set it in Iceland, it completely transformed it, because the landscape and the elements there are so contrasting, and so that nature is a huge resonance sort of thing as well. The last one that I want to talk about is first-hand research. When I was first writing Kabogoth, for those of you who don't know, Kabogoth takes place a little bit in some caves, and part of those caves become lava tubes. I've never been to lava tubes, but down in St. George, which is close around where I live, down in Snow Canyon, they have these lava tubes that you can go and visit. And so I went down and saw them firsthand because I wanted to feel what Nora, my character, who is a little bit claustrophobic, what she would feel going into something like this. And it was totally effective because I'm a little claustrophobic myself, and I didn't dare go. So understanding the terror that she would have felt in that particular scene, I needed to experience firsthand so that it would really resonate with my readers, to know how that really felt. That me as the author had really felt that kind of suffocation of going into something like that. Another thing that I've done is studied the elements, because in my book they're Elementalists, which are people who manipulate the elements. And what I've tried to do is study the elements so that I can have the element of each elementalist, their specific element, resonate through their character with the readers, so that their element is reflective in their character. And if you don't understand the element, how can you reflect that in your character's disposition and their mannerisms and whatnot? And so that's another thing that I've tried to do. One more thing before I close, because this is getting really long, sorry, is that finally the last thing to consider when you're seeking to use resonance in your writing is you really need to focus on your audience and what your audience has experienced, the events in their life historically that would have influenced them. For example, if you're trying to write a World War II novel for a young adult audience, you have to somehow take this thing that happened clear before they were born and make it resonate with them. So that's something to really consider, is really figuring out how to take events that aren't, or figuring out how to resonate with your specific audience. And so anyway, those are just some ideas of how we can use resonance in our own writing, and how it's been used by, really great authors to create a wide resonant factor with a wide audience. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Good luck with your own writing. I've tried all of these things, and they really work. They really are effective in creating resonance, and also making writing so much easier, because you're writing from experience, because you know, really study these things, and that makes it more authentic for your reader as well. So good luck, and we will see you guys next time. And remember, Uncovering Comic Goth is coming out May 13th, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.